just give us your overall thoughts as an organization on this season so far.
Well, first off, we're extremely happy to be as part of the Pacific Division here, and the move to Stockton has been very successful for us as an organization. As you look at player development and how we want to develop our players, we felt that they're in a great situation here in Stockton. Unfortunately, not making the playoffs is disappointing, but there's a lot of positives to take out of the whole season for us.
Was it easy to get players up to Calgary, like easier than you guys anticipated, or than it was back in Adirondack when you guys were calling you guys up?
Yeah, it's literally half the time, half the travel time when we recall players or send players down from Stockton to Calgary compared to Adirondack to Calgary, both in flight time and driving time. So for sure, it's made a difference for our players to be fresh when they either get sent down or when they get called up with half the travel time.
Does that affect how quickly you maybe would decide on calling a guy up, or make it easier for you to say, "Oh, let's bring a guy up from soccer"?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're always looking at if we're playing back-to-back games and what's the easiest route to get them there, and giving them the best opportunity to continue playing. You don't ever want players sitting out, and the proximity of Stockton to Calgary has been a real blessing for us and something we've been really excited about.
And then some of the specific guys that we've had here, Derek Grant, probably the first name that comes to mind, really impressive with our roster. Was that something you guys expected when you signed him on July 1st?
Well, yeah, you're hopeful. No, we were really impressed with the season Derek had. When we signed him, our pro scouts knew he was going to be an offensive player. He's a big body, he can be great on the face-offs and play in all situations. So, for sure he met our expectations and exceeded them at times as well. And he was a real impressive player for us offensively and a good signing last year.
And then obviously maybe didn't have quite the offensive numbers when you did see him in Calgary, but when we talked to Craig Conroy, and he said that maybe with Calgary it wasn't quite his expectation to come up and be a 30-goal scorer like he is here. But did you see what you needed from him in Calgary as well?
Yeah, I mean, like any player, you'd like to see more production out of Derek when he got up, and would have been great to see him even more games. He unfortunately got hurt a couple of times, especially in the spring with his jaw. So, but when he was up there, he was impressive, especially the last couple of games that he played. So, we have some decisions to make, as does he. He's a free agent in the summertime. So, but we'll continue to have discussions with him and internally what our needs are and where Derek might fit.
And then one of the other big names that we had, a chance to see early on, not quite all year, was Jon Gillies. I guess first off, how is the rehab going as smoothly as hoped?
Yes, Jon got his hip operated on, as you know, there in the fall, and his rehab is going very, very well. He's in great shape. He spent a good portion of time rehabbing in Calgary and working with Ryan Van Asten and our medical staff in Calgary. He's progressing to have a complete full recovery. He'll be participating in our development camp in Calgary in July, and we're excited to have Jon a healthy Jon Gillies starting the season next year.
With the goalie situation, though, throughout the organization, obviously a lot of decisions to be made. Where does Gillies fall on that kind of decision line? Is he someone that you guys still see as a down the line kind of guy, or is he someone that you might see making an impact on the Calgary roster potentially next year?
It's hard to say. I think having a season off, he needs to play a bunch of games here. Whether that's in Calgary or whether that's here is ultimately going to be up to him and his play. I think if you just look at paper, I think you would say, hey, he needs a good full season, if not two, in the American League. And you look at goaltenders across the league on other teams, and that's the progression they've taken and really matured as a player. Jon's a tremendous prospect for us, and obviously a great athlete and a great goalie. His mindset and his training all summer is going to be to make the Calgary Flames, and that's what you want of every player. So if he progresses enough and plays enough, well then, hey, we're going to take the best players in Calgary. But so ultimately that'll be up to Jon and see where our signings happen in the summertime.
One of the most impressive lines that we saw here was Agostino, Hamilton, and Hathaway. They played together for most of the season down here. You have to see all three of them in Calgary. I guess your general thoughts on the three of those players and their development for this season.
Yeah, Hathaway's he's a really good, strong right winger that gives everything he has. He obviously had the chance to get called up and showed what he had, and that's the player he is. That's the player that we signed, and he gives 100%. He's always in top shape. The last 2 training camps for Calgary, he's within the top 3. Of all players, and he keeps himself in tremendous shape, and that gives him a leg up on things. Kenny obviously led our team in scoring last year, and continues to be up in the top of scoring, and he just has that scoring touch that I think at times we're missing, and he contributed offensively, and as for Freddie Hamilton, and another real good player we're happy to have in our system. I think he's multi-dimensional, where he can play PP and on the PK, and his face-offs are good, and it's a really good line for us, and it has been a good line here in Stockton, and really good players for us as well.
And as far as Hathaway is concerned, he seems to really play that Calgary style where, maybe he doesn't put up the huge numbers point-wise, but he's going to generate offense just by playing physical in the corners and doing those sorts of things for you.
Sure. I think his offensive numbers dropped from last year to this year, but it's not for a lack of effort and a lack of compete. And those are 2 things that he brings each and every day, whether it's practice, whether it's in the gym, but most importantly on the ice during games. And that's who he is, and that's the player we want him to be. And you can see even when he was in the NHL or when he plays here in Stockton, how he frustrates opponents, and that's a good asset to have for him in his repertoire, but for us to have in our team.
And then another guy who really frustrates opponents is Turner Ellison, and he's kind of one of those guys who's flown under the radar for pretty much his whole career. But this season, he seemed to really break out, and he finally got the call up for the 1 game with Calgary. Have you seen him make that just exponential jump in his career this season?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. He's been an energy player for us. Always a leader. When he played junior, he was captain of his junior team and wore a letter for us at times. And he's a good leader on and off the ice. He's a great personality, but his play, he can play up and down the lineup, first line to the fourth line, and can play in different situations as well. So you love his compete as well. He's a player that we'll talk about and make decisions on in the summertime, but he has some tremendous assets, and like I say, another guy that gives everything he has every time he's on the ice.
There's another guy like that on the team too. Morgan Klimchuk has seemed to kind of develop into that kind of a role as well. But I know as a first rounder, and especially coming from his background in juniors, he's a scorer, and the scoring wasn't happening for him so much this year. But did you see what you felt you guys needed to see from Morgan in terms of what you wanted him to grow and how you wanted him to grow, I guess, in his first season as a pro?
Yeah, I mean, Morgan's is a great prospect for us, and we felt that he had a really good development year. You're right, the offensive production up until Christmas time wasn't there, and I think since then he had a couple injuries and he battled through, but he's a player that I think he obviously has that offensive production, had it in junior his whole career. And I think he spent the year in the American League just really learning the pro game and really working with our coaching staff, going through video, knowing what it takes to keep enhancing his game as a player, and his defensive side of his game. And I think he was an asset for us killing penalties. He has great speed, and he has more compete and dig for the puck over the last couple of months than he did the first part of the year, and I think that's just going to continue his progression into next year.
Coach has mentioned quite a few times that he's extremely coachable and that he's called him a quote-unquote safe player. Is that something that you've noticed as well when you watch the team? Sure,
yeah. I mean, any of those players that we've talked about here, including him, is the coaches love that. They love the coachability of these guys. They love the hard work, and I think that's what the Stockton Heat this year was known for, especially early on, where we'd outwork and outshoot opponents almost every game, if not every game. The results, win-loss, wasn't there at the start of the season and sometimes throughout the season, but our compete, and Morgan is like that. He has that compete. He's hard on pucks, and his skating is an asset for him. So it's another energy guy that we really like. Obviously, as a first round, he's a good prospect for us, and we're going to continue to develop him as well.